Hi everybody. In this video, we're going to talk about a corollary to using a number line. A corollary is just something that follows logically from something else. So if you understand what a number line is, then you can figure out all of this other stuff. So what are we going to talk about? If you start in positive territory meaning numbers that are to the right of 0, and move to the right. So if you start in positive territory and then you continue moving to the right, your answer will always be positive. But if you start in positive territory and move to the left, your answer will sometimes be positive and sometimes negative. On the other hand, if you start in negative territory, so that means you're starting somewhere over here, which are the numbers that are less than 0, so they are to the left of 0. If you start somewhere here and you move to the left, then your answer will always be negative. But if you move to the right, your answer will sometimes be negative and sometimes positive. So let's look at some examples. In these cases over here, we're always starting in positive territory. So for all of these expressions, we're starting at positive 4. And if we start at positive 4 and we move to the right, you can see that we're definitely going to get a positive answer. No matter how far we move to the right, our answer must be positive. So for example, 4 plus 3 means we start at 4 and then go to the right 3 spaces. We end up at positive 7. Now, what if we again start at positive 4, but this time instead of moving to the right, we move to the left? Well, we might get a positive answer. So for example, 4 minus 1 means we start at 4 and go 1 space to the left, and we end up at positive 3. But it's also possible to get a negative answer. So if we start at positive 4 and then go 10 spaces to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we're going to end up in negative territory. In this case, we end up at negative 6. And basically, you should be able to convince yourself that if we start at 4, if we move to the left, then if that second number is less than 4, we're still going to end up in positive territory. But if that second number is greater than 4, then we're going to end up in negative territory. We would pass 0 and end up in negative territory. Let's move on to another example. In all of these cases now, we're starting in negative territory. So in these cases, we're always going to start at negative 6. All right, so we'll start at negative 6, and if we move to the left, if we go this way, then of course we're going to stay in negative territory. If we start here and we move to the left, there's no way that we could possibly get into positive territory. So for example, negative 6 minus 2, I'll go 2 spaces to the left, and you can see I end up on a negative number, negative 8. But let me just change that dot. That dot was weird. Okay, I like that better. But if we start at negative 6 and move to the right, we might get a negative answer, but we also might get a positive answer. So for example, negative 6 plus 5 means we start at negative 6 and then we go 5 spaces to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we end up at -1. So we're still in negative territory. But what if we had moved a greater distance? So for example, what if we go to the right 7 spaces? So starting at -6, I'll move to the right 7 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This time I ended up in positive territory. I ended up at +1. All right. And again, you should be able to convince yourself if you start at -6 and you move to the right by some number which is less than 6, then you'll stay in negative territory. But if you move to the right by some number which is greater than 6, say 7, or 8, or 9, or 10, and so on, then you're going to end up in positive territory. All right, so let me just read this all again. Now, hopefully, it should make a little bit more sense. If we start in positive territory and move to the right, our answer is always going to be positive. But if we start in positive territory and move to the left, our answer will sometimes be positive and sometimes negative. On the other hand, if we start in, let me keep this here. If we start in negative territory and move to the left, then our answer will always be negative. But if we start in negative territory and move to the right, our answer will sometimes stay in negative territory, but we might sometimes pass 0 and get into positive territory. All right? So that's just something to keep in mind as you're evaluating all these expressions dealing with positive and negative numbers. Okay, have a great day.